Hey everyone, today on the Bulletin we are going to be talking about remakes and remasters. How soon is too soon and what actually warrants them at all? I'm Jen Garcia here again for the Bulletin, and as far as remakes and remasters, even before we jump into this conversation, I think we just need to clarify a few necessary terms. So we have ports, we have remakes, and we have remasters as kind of our three key definitions when we have this conversation. Just to kind of recap, a port is when you're adapting the software for the purpose of running it in an environment different from the one that it was originally made for. So an example would be we have a game like The Binding of Isaac, and that game originally came out on PC and iOS, and then was ported to the Nintendo Switch. So they went in and did any adjustments they needed to do in order to be able to release it on the Nintendo Switch and have it run on that hardware. So that would be an example of a port. Then when we're talking about remasters, what we're getting at is when you take an original game, so you have the original code and assets, and you improve it in order to make it look better graphically, and you might add in some things in order to make it compatible with the new hardware it's working on, and sometimes you also add in additional features, but you don't need to for it to be a remaster. A great example of a remaster would be The Last of Us remastered for PS4. It originally came out on PS3. They went in and touched it up to make it look better, and in order to get to run properly on the PS4. So the differences between kind of these titles is one was we went in and we made it look better. This was just let me get this same experience on the Switch and allow it to run on the Switch. And the very last term we need to get at is remakes. And the reason I bundle remakes and remasters in this video and in this conversation is because they kind of do similar things. So a remake is when you actually remake the game, so you start from scratch using kind of original code. So the differences between a remake and a remaster are really just about how do you go about making the game look and run better, and the difference is one you tweak and then one you kind of redo. And that's basically it. The one thing that kind of comes up a lot in these conversations too are the blurry games in terms of this. So if we think of, and I don't have a copy of it on me, but if we think of, we have Pokemon Moon, and then we have Pokemon Ultra Moon. In that case, that would be kind of known as an enhanced version, so it doesn't really fall in either of those three categories. We have other games that, blur the lines of these as well. If we think of, and I have a couple examples right here, if we think of Dishonored Definitive Edition or Gears of War Ultimate Edition, what exactly does that mean? And I believe this one involves some remastered components, but right, it gets a little bit funky when we have these Game of the Year editions and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and that's just Mario Kart 8 but with the DLC already included when it was ported to Switch. So sometimes it does get a little bit complicated, but that's just kind of my way of getting those definitions out there so that we all now have kind of a working understanding of them, with the knowledge that sometimes it does get a little bit wonky with a couple titles, even just in the language some of the developers use. So if we think of the Jak and Daxter series, we have these games for PS2. They originally came out on the PS2, and then we have the remastered collection. So it's labeled as Jak and Daxter Collection Remastered in HD. And we notice that Sony in particular uses this wording a lot. They'll say the collection, and it's a remaster, but they don't mention it on the packaging. This is back when remasters were still kind of younger, so it's very clear remastered in HD, and that's stated right in the front of the box. And Sony still does a little bit of that, this says Last of Us Remastered, but sometimes they will just put out a collection and not really mention anywhere on the packaging that it was actually a remaster. So that's getting all that out of the way. So jumping into the conversation at hand for how soon is too soon and kind of what warrants a remaster, the bottom line for me is this: when you are remastering a game, it should be a game that is iconic and has some sort of lasting memory in gaming history. Now, this doesn't need to be the greatest game of all time or reinvent the wheel entirely, but a lot of times when it comes to remasters or remakes, What I want to see is a game chosen that did something new within a genre, or has or a game that the community has a deep fondness for. So when we think of the hits of a console, it's a game that will be brought up again and again in conversations. Oftentimes, I think the industry does a pretty good job at selecting these games, but the one kind of gripe I have on remasters and remakes is the frequency is sometimes a little bit too high. One thing that I would love to see worked on is, I'd say just in general, not remaking or remastering a game when it's only one generation old. The reason that I think we should kind of hold off on this, especially early in video game history, because video games are still super, super young, is there's so many changes that happen in between console generations, and we're still kind of figuring out what is the timeline of consoles in general, that if we remaster or remake them too quickly, it kind of ends up losing its cachet really fast. So a good example would be when we have Ico and the Shadow of the Colossus remaster. So it was a game that was remastered for PS3 that was originally put on PS2. I went back and played that not too long ago, and I'm like, wow, this looks like pretty bad, because the PS3 looks so much like more graphically inferior than the PS4 does, which isn't a diss to the PS3. It's more of a testament to how great the PS4 looks, and this generation in general. And then we see that they did the remake of Shadow of the Colossus for PS4, and that looks way, way better. I haven't actually played that myself because that game didn't really grab me the same way it grabbed other people. But I think it's a good example of like, wow, how many times are we going to see Shadow of the Colossus? And I know it's a big deal game for people and that it's a really loved game, but it's like, I feel like we just keep getting this game over and over again. And I say that even as someone that did buy the Jak and Daxter collection on PS3 when I had just played it on PS2. So I definitely, am, in a sense, I can be hypocritical in terms of what I actually spend my money on in terms of these things, but I think just in general, it's better to wait because it's a lot more impactful. And I think one thing to be mindful of is, even when we do find games that are iconic and that we do have a deep fondness for, some of those games should just kind of be left where they are in history, I think, because sometimes when we go back into that nostalgia, we realize, this wasn't actually that good. It's not even like a graphics thing or how it runs. It's just not that good of a game. And that really happened to me with the Crash Bandicoot remake for PS4. When that came out, I was like really excited about it. I was like, oh, it looks so good. And it really does look amazing, but it doesn't play well, like, at all to me. And the other thing too, even if we put that aside, so I have beef with like how it functions and how the hitboxes work and all of that, but even if we take that and put that aside, like, it's not that good of a game because games shouldn't be from that angle. And I feel like my feelings and my fondness for Crash Bandicoot was really kind of ruined by that release of it for PS4. So oddly enough, sometimes I think the best way to honor things is to just like remember the time you did have with them and just kind of let that go, because every now and then you revisit something and you're like, this wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So that's my take on remakes and remasters, on when they should come out and what games they should come out for. But of course, none of this is to say that I don't like remakes or that I don't like remasters. I just think we need to make sure we're being mindful on the things that we're choosing to carry on into new generations. Because aside from the fact that, the obvious kind of like, now we feel like we have to just keep buying these games over and over again, there are a lot of great things to remakes and remasters, and there are a lot of games that I'm happy to see get new life, especially, to reach a younger audience of players that may not have grown up with these classic games. I think that's really important. And I think it can be a fun way to hype up a new entry into a franchise. And also you can make improvements to the games as well, which can be true in ports, remasters, or remakes, but it's just kind of a chance to go in and take something that was good that we remember and actually make it better for us experiencing it for the second time or for the first time. Let me know on the comments below what you guys think about remake and remaster culture, which ones are you really excited about, which ones could you have done without, and all of that. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to our channel, and I will see you guys here next time. Bye.